and we can edit this bit out.
Okay.
Sounds
cool.
good.
All right. So that's an excellent. I'm stuck.
Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around, and I've discovered.
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the machinima, Luke. Hello and welcome to the December edition of And Now for Something Completely Machinima. Happy holidays to everyone that's listening and watching.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, I'm joined by my fellow machinima people, Tracy Harwood.
Hi.
Phil Rice.
Hello.
And of course, Ricky Grove.
Hey!
Right, so this week we're going to be talking about Phil's film, but I believe you got some news that it was announced the day after we recorded last month. So this is something we're all very excited about. So Phil, what are you going to tell us?
Yeah, so Reallusion has released a new tool that works with, well, I think it's mainly intended to work with iClone, but it's an area that I've been keeping an eye on and was right on the verge of dipping my toe in to experiment with, and that is these different technologies that are out there that can take the input from a webcam, for example, and extract from that motion data, specifically regard to the to facial animation. There's a couple different tools that's being experimented with in a similar vein as like 11 Labs and Leonardo, and these little pop-up companies experimenting with that. One of them is specifically green screen footage, and it will try to extract from that motion data that you can import into whatever tool. And then there's another one that's meant to capture it live. And Reallusion has entered into that market with a really nice showing. The tool is called Accuface, and it does both of those approaches. You can hook up actual motion capture equipment, like if you've got something sophisticated like the Rococo thing, where it holds the camera out in front of your face and basically without any pointers or any stuff stuck to your face, like we've seen, in the making of Avatar or movies like that. It actually does a very good job of, kind of calibrating to the face that it's looking at and capturing all the little intricate details of the face animation. Reallusion has been pioneering in this area for a while now. Their AccuRig tool, which is now just built into iClone, and I think into Character Creator as well, or maybe it's Character Creator where it's built in. You can take any model basically, and it will looking at a model with no bones for animation or anything, it will put in a proper skeleton in there and let you tweak it. And it's just, if you follow the instructions that tool gives you, it's extremely effective. So you can grab a model from anywhere and basically add that skeleton to it. Now they've taken it to the next level with this Accuface, because basically any face that's put in front of Accuface by way of a camera of really any quality camera, and it will help you calibrate where the eyes are exactly, where the mouth is, and all of that, and then will capture a performance either from video or from live interaction, including head turns and all the different facial expressions, and capture it all into clean and usable motion data. So it's a pretty big deal, and I saw some people on one of Reallusion's forums or Facebook groups or something kind of belly aching a little bit about the price, because if you've if you've been using Reallusion's product line for a while, you find that it's certainly not a one-time purchase. Getting involved with iClone and that pipeline, of course, the main software updates every few years, and they offer very generous upgrade discounts for people who had the previous version. But you kind of need a budget to. I'm sure Damien can attest as well that to have the toolkit that you need. It's a regular expense, and this is This is an additional expense because not everybody needs this. But people who are involved in what we're doing, it's a very, very useful tool. There's no other way to get the information quite this way without some kind of a very, very high-end professional kit, including hardware. And this is something that for a few $100s, I believe it is, it's silly that I don't know the price like right off the top of my head because I purchased it like 8 hours after it was released. I haven't gotten to use it yet because I'm not on the project. I'm not yet on the project that needs it. But I knew right away, okay, this is something I know that I need.
Yeah.
And the idea of having it from a company like Reallusion, where there's going to be some support involved, and where it's a community, a product that has a community around it. But it isn't just community supported. It's actually got the official stamp.
So
I knew that was going to be vital for me.
Christmas list thing, Phil, is what you're saying.
Not for me, no.
You've got it already.
A new face would be a good Christmas list for me.
I don't know.
But Accuface, I'm good. Yeah. So anyway, it's a big deal. I think it's certainly affordable when you look at it within the context of what tools in this platform. Yeah.
It's what?
You still there, Damien?
Hold on, I'm having some issues with my connection.
Oh.
Yeah.
While you were away, we made some changes to the show, Damien.
Okay.
Technical difficulties are no longer allowed. I'm so sorry. Thank you for your service. And maybe some other time. You still there?
I think the issue of the cost is legitimate, but on the other hand, if you compare that to high-end professional tools, simply buying Maya
or Cinema 4D
or Cinema 4D or
right.
any of those is 3 times
it's
4 times the cost of whatever you would end up paying at Reallusion. And also the other thing is that Reallusion has just gotten more professional and more quality as they've gone. That's why they're so popular and they're doing so well, because they don't release buggy applications. They fix things that they come up. Well, they fix things.
But no, I know what you mean. Yeah, they don't release buggy things and just let it be.
That's right.
They're in continual development. What I really respect about them is that they have moved themselves into the same category as, Autodesk type, that tier of software. And yet, comparatively, the price to get involved with their stuff is very, very reasonable by comparison. Like, Autodesk and most of, the higher end Adobe software and things like that, man, it's pricey stuff, and it always has been.
Yeah.
And Reallusion could get away with that if they wanted to just target just the professionals market, which is what Autodesk and those other softwares do. They're not interested in our use of it. They're not really. It's people with a bigger budget. Reallusion could do that, but they have not. And I think that's deliberate. That they're deliberately remembering the people, the amateur community like us that have been involved with it for many years. So I appreciate that. Anyway, it looks like a really exciting tool.
Great.
And,
Damien, you were going to tell us the price?
He's muted right now.
You're muted, Damien.
Okay, there we go. So I was looking up the price and that caused my connection issues. I don't know why.
Oh, no. Even the Zoom is upset with the pricing on. Oh, God.
All right, but I've got the figures in front of me, and that seems to. So they're currently doing a launch special, which is half price. So the half price is $250, and the full price will be
Like $4.99.
$499.
Yeah.
I don't know when that expires because it doesn't say, but hopefully by the time it won't have expired by the time this goes out. So if you're thinking about it, get
Yeah,
it
hopefully
now.
that's
Now's the
through
time to
December,
get
hopefully.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there is a trial version as well, so you can download that and give it. You can produce 10 videos. I think the limit is, or use it 10 times for 30 seconds each to get the handle of it, which is what I did. And by the 10th time, I had a pretty good video, so that convinced me to spend the money.
Sure. And I'll reiterate too that there are some other quite a bit more affordable tools that aren't going to be as sophisticated or necessary. You shouldn't expect the same level of result. But if you just don't have a budget for it, but you still want to do something like this, maybe we'll cover those. Maybe I'll plan to cover that next month as my news item. I'll quickly go through and review what those alternative tools are for webcam to motion, basically, is the category. There's some neat stuff out there that's relatively inexpensive, at least right now, because a lot of them are in beta and stuff. So I was really surprised, given that there's those tools. Not a one of them is final, the alternatives. They're all in beta. They're all very early. And here's Reallusion steps out, and this is a fully functional product that does it in multiple ways. Like no other product does that. No other product in the category can accept the input from pre-recorded video or from camera. It's just wonderful that they kept a lid on this. I didn't even know they were working on it. So it's very, very smart move, especially with all the emphasis that they've done on, meta-human and creating these very realistic characters. That's a big part of their market. Maybe not so much how I use it, but it's a big part of their market for people who are doing stuff, really advanced stuff with Unreal, to get these realistic human characters. And if you're going to have a realistic human character, part of what makes it look real in video is realistic motion.
Yep.
And they have seen that. And actually, what I believe it's James Martin is kind of leading the initiative. He's actually going around the country, and they're doing live expo type sign up, training for real, like full body mocap, how to work with it, how to work with the hardware, and how to actually get it all the way into the workflow using iClone or Character Creator. Very savvy on their part.
Amazing.
He's
Yeah.
been in Atlanta and a couple different other places. They're traveling around doing that. And they seem very excited about it. So yeah, they've clearly got this part of animation as a priority.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with it as well. So I tried the trial, and I put that sort of clip together. I just repeated some lines from F the Empire to test it out with using one of the characters I voiced, and he just seemed so much more lively than when I tried animating his face by hand. And some of the voice actors have been saying they want to give it a try, so I've got to figure out how to direct them so that they can read the script, but also
that's great. Yeah, they could record a video of their performance, and you could bring it in. So yeah, that's so interesting.
I need to figure out a way so that I can maybe draw a map of the set and say, well, you're going to be here, and these other characters are here, and maybe you'll look over here at some point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I never had to think about anything like that before. So it's been going around my head for the last few weeks to how am I going to do this? Because they want to give it a try just to say they've done it, and they're excited for it.
Oh, that's very interesting. I'm curious to see how you work out that problem. Yeah, that would be a fun
keep us updated on that.
Yeah, I will, because I've using the recordings I've got so far. The other thing is, I've been doing the facial animation myself. My face is not the most expressive face, but I've been trying to give it a go, and I just not moving my mouth. So I've still got the lip sync from their recording, because the Accu lips thing, that's still really good. But I can do the other expressions, and it combines them together quite nicely.
Right, you can layer the various animation takes you do, which is another great thing about the program.
Yeah,
sure.
Oh, that sounds fascinating.
Tracy, do you want to say anything about it?
No, I haven't had a go with it, but it does sound absolutely incredible. I think that's definitely going to be a one on my list. I haven't really found any good, reasonably priced facial animation tools that we can use other than the sort of the big expensive stuff. But I do remember reading some time ago, and I think I put something on the blogs, it must be several months ago now, where Reallusion were using a different type of technique, which wasn't really looking at muscle movement, but was looking at how the surface of the skin moved, which was an entirely different approach to the way that most of the other facial mocap stuff actually works. And that's what they used on Avatar too. And that's what's, led them into kind of new developments around that, I guess. And my thoughts would be that what you're talking about is one of the products that come out of that set of developments. So it's kind of a different way of producing the facial animation, I would guess. But really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
This isn't their first tool in the markerless facial animation thing. They have another one that existed for quite some time that used an iPhone. Something about the iPhone's camera could capture that information, and you could use that. And actually, I never got to try that, and I'm not sure now that I ever will have to, because this tool seems to be able to pull that off just through a regular, nice web camera. So,
I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a look at this, but when you sign up for biometric, things like facial recognition, biometric facial recognition, have you seen the images that those scans create of your face? You wouldn't recognize yourself. You look ancient because the scans go below surface and then sort of do some kind of modeling so that you've got like different layers of your face, and the image that it produces, it's bizarre. But that kind of, and that's all done with webcam technology. So if what we're talking about is an integration of that kind of level of depth of analysis with with animation tools, I think there's there's going to be vast improvements to the way this kind of technology can be used in the very near future, I would have thought.
Sure.
And when they start adding in AI to it,
exactly,
it'll be even better.
Yeah.
Which I guarantee Reallusion is trying to work out.
I think they'll be among the first to really properly integrate that into a high-end commercial product like this. I fully expect that. I have no reason to think it. Like they're keeping a nice tight lid on it. It's like trying to find out when the next Tool album is going to come out. They never tell, right? It's just all of a sudden one day there it is. So that's Reallusion's got they keep tight lips.
I believe there's some AI actually in this plugin now. The way it interprets the facial animation,
that wouldn't surprise me.
One of the things that you do is you do your performance, but you have to do that sort of the calibration of your face to different expressions. So you got your neutral,
right,
which is
right
like this. Then you do and you calibrate that, and then it'll go back to the recording or the live video, and it knows how to read the moods of the expressions you're making and calibrate the performance accordingly. And that's obviously going to be AI driven in some capacity. I don't know how it works. So I just know it's something that they talked about kind of briefly on the website for it.
So I've got a little
Very
bit of
cool.
news.
Cool. What?
Well, what abiding memory do you have of Pink Floyd? Apart from the music, what do you remember?
Their music, their album Dark Side of the Moon, or the pigs over the great illustration with the pig over the smokestacks of Animals album.
Of Animals, right?
Yeah. And do you remember the worms coming out of the apple rice or whatever it was, the potato ricer, people being ground up? And do you remember that?
We don't need no education.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, Pink Floyd, they've just launched an animation competition for their 50th anniversary release of Dark Side of the Moon album. I couldn't believe it was 50. 50. That dates us, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, well, I was a little shocked at that. Anyway, what they're calling for is any copyright cleared form of animation that can be submitted to this contest and they're looking for people to take a fresh take on that album. The deadline's really quite tight. It's the 31st of December. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of submissions. But there's some stunning prizes for it. £100,000 prizes to the winners and such.
Woo!
Yeah, really significant stuff. Yeah. And also a great panel reviewing the work. So Pink Floyd's Nick Mason's going to be involved, and also that well-known director Terry Gilliam, even, among several others.
Awesome.
So I think, there seems to be an effort here being made to think about what this album means to the next generation of animators, which is really cool. So if you've got time and opportunity, the 31st of December isn't that far away. Get your animation fingers going, I think.
Yep.
I'll have to fire up Halo and
I think so.
get the ideas going. You know?
Yep.
Well, luckily Machinima is fast, a fast turnaround. So any of our listeners and viewers should be able to turn something out and submit it. And I wish you luck.
Yes.
Well,
the copyright clear bit might be the challenge, I think, because that will be, as ever, one of the things that pops out. iClone and Movie Storm and a couple of other tools. That should, if you're one of those users, then you should be in luck. At least for submitting.
It'll be interesting to see if anyone attempts to use, Midjourney or Runway or some kind of AI generated thing for this, given the questionable copyright nature of that whole enterprise. How do they evaluate copyright of something like that, if assuming they can even detect that it was made with that? There's some interesting stuff. I'm not going to have the time to construct something specifically for that, but I'm going to watch what is submitted with interest, because there's a lot of very interesting ways people are creating animation nowadays.
Yeah.
But from Unreal Engine all the way, across the spectrum, some interesting possibilities there. So I'll watch
the
that
movies
with
for me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft.
That funny little walk they do.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to come back and talk about some of the submissions that we see.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right.
Well, that is my only news, really. But actually, I think it links quite nicely to what Phil's going to tell us a little bit about in due course. Yeah.
And it's good to have that in early, so it gives our listeners more time to actually submit something if they want to. All right. So let's move on to the film. So, Phil, what have you chosen for us this month?
Oh my God, here it comes.
Oh, yeah. If you've watched the show for a while, you know that I have a like for, silly Let's Play. I don't mean silly in a derogatory way, but I mean, satirical,
sadistic,
over the top, performance, sadistic, particularly with The Sims for some reason. I don't know. I have some kind of grudge against The Sims, but every single one of them is, Sims in a meat grinder or something. That's right. This one is titled "I Abducted My Entire Neighborhood in The Sims 4."
Just the title makes you want to laugh.
And it's by a guy who's been doing Let's Plays for a while under the YouTube channel name Let's Game It Out. He has this his voice is very it's like a very produced sounding voice, heavily compressed, almost like a radio or TV type announcer voice. I don't know what his background is in that regard, or if it's just what he chose for this, but so it reads in this almost old-timey television type voice of, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe Ricky, you'll have an idea of how to describe it, but then the content is, this guy's a psychopath. I mean, it's I won't give away the entire story here, but basically he starts up a game of The Sims 4 and abducts a Sim, locks him in a house with bare furniture, hardly any furniture at all, locks him in there, and then just starts obsessively painting him and hanging pictures of the guy on the wall. So like if you imagine this as a scenario. Oh, and by the way, the lead character doing all of this, the abducting and the painting and the sadism, it's Keanu Reeves. It's Keanu Reeves, from the late Matrix / cyberpunk, long-haired, bearded John Wick era. It is Keanu Reeves, which to me adds an additional level of funny to it, because Keanu Reeves is whatever psychopath is on the scales. I get the impression that Keanu Reeves is on the other end of the spectrum altogether.
Indeed.
He's just like a ridiculously nice guy, right? So yeah, that's it. This it reminds me of, who was that? Gray Still Plays, about I built a 5,000-mile hallway or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he just puts the Sims through this. And this is that type of thing. And he ends up with quite a collection of Sims. The title is a spoiler as to what ends up happening. Yes, he abducts his entire neighborhood. It's just absolutely my kind of humor. It's humor that I think if I showed it to my wife, she'd question my mental health. Like she'd wonder what's wrong with me out loud. What's the matter with you? Why it's so cruel? It's so mean. It is. It's mean. It's cruel. I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't know how. I know a bit about how The Sims works. So I know enough about it to know that like some of the stuff that he kind of, the video plays out as if it just unfolded and just happened and he improvised his way through it. But there's some of this stuff that requires a little bit of planning and manipulation of the game and stuff behind the scenes to make it happen. I don't care. Like, it doesn't spoil it at all for me, because this is a performance. This is essentially a really sick comedy sketch in the guise of a Let's Play, which is, as far as Gray Still Plays, my favorite videos of Gray Still Plays are the ones where he's doing that, where he's acting almost like, oh, this just happened. I just stumbled into this. Truth is, to come up with ideas this good, this sick, and this funny, there's planning involved. I really respect this craft.
Of course.
So, it's just wonderful stuff. What did you guys think of it?
Well, those awful horror movies, series called Saw, where they put these groups, usually of teens or younger people, in these horrific moral situations and torture situations. Those are so bad, the squirm factor is off the charts. However, you take that concept and you put it in a cartoon. And remember Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Coyote's always getting chopped up and mashed up.
Incredibly violent
everything.
show. That's right.
Exactly. So you put him in a cartoon situation and it becomes funny. And you lose that moral tone. I mean, I was saying, hey, it's sadistic, it's mean. I was being sarcastic about it. Of course it is. Because somehow it's safe to do it to lifeless animated character, obviously lifeless animated characters. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can be a sadist and it works because it's funny. Because if you think of it, the subject is a serial kidnapper come artist. I mean, if you did a real life version of that, it would be horrifying. It was just terrible. Plus, I think the tone of the humor is a kind of very, very black humor, which is so modern. And so if you go through Netflix and several of the other things, you'll find that almost all of the comedies nowadays, unless they're romantic comedies, are black humor comedies. Because now audiences are conditioned to know that the humor is on two levels. There's the obvious joke, and then there's this underneath, the darker tone to it, the sort of meanness to the whole thing, I also think that you were talking about the narrator. The narrator, it's his tone of voice. And when you said it was highly compressed, that made so much sense, because the upper register, the higher tones, are emphasized over the lower. It's a drier sound, which gives the edge to his voice. And he's already doing this sort of, I don't know, slightly patronizing tone of voice, as if somehow not only are all of the Sims characters fools, but the audience watching the video are stupid as well. You know, he's just got this holier than thou kind of thing. Oh, that's too bad. These little sarcastic asides. It's just brilliant. And his use of the game mechanics, changing things around and then making it look like, oh, he made a mistake and now he's going to fix it. You know, obviously he's worked all of that out. He's written it all out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear you can't make a good film like that. My only problem with the film was that it was too long. I think it could have made the point better. But then again, I asked myself in my notes, I say, well, what exactly is the point of the film? I mean, do you guys know what the point of it is, other than to put these characters into a situation and make them squirm? What? I don't know. But anyway, it was marvelous. I just loved it. It's great.
It's really interesting to hear you say that, because I've got very similar comments, actually. But I wonder to what extent this guy really is a tormentor, and the length is probably a deliberate choice as well. Maybe.
What, tormenting the viewer?
I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, my comments. Well, I don't know if you remember, but many, many years ago, I'm Phil, you would have remembered this. Many years ago, you used to see quite a lot of Sims movies doing, cruel and mentionable things with the characters, because that's the only way you could get them to act. I remember the Ill Clan telling me about how they used to torture the Sims characters to get them to do different things before they kind of moved into Second Life and what have you. And I remember also Rooster Teeth guys tried to produce a series. Was it called The Strangerhood?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that was a bit tortuous as well with Sims characters. And they got a bit fed up with it because it took so much effort to actually, get these characters to do what they really want. But I don't kind of get the impression that that's quite the same as what this guy is doing. And it's this kind of sadistic humor in tormenting these characters that really kind of shines through this, and he really kind of rams it home. But there's a huge amount of effort that has gone into doing it. I would suggest it's probably done over many, many hours, if not days of running the sim.
Indeed.
But I've never really been a Sims player, so I wouldn't know too much about that. But I think it's really the interesting choices the creator makes that seem to give him a role of something a bit like a praying mantis, really, and a predator. And it comes, by the end of it, you clearly get the sense that he is indeed a predator, because he starts out wanting to sort of position this as wanting to socialize, and ends up wanting to see what happens when he starts really restricting the other characters, and ultimately his attempt to sort of capture as many these kind of folks as he can, and keep them locked up forever.
Yeah,
seems to be his kind of where he gets to it, and it's that kind of getting darker and darker throughout that makes it really quite interesting.
Wonderful.
He's like an empathic kidnapper doing it for love for some reason, and you kind of got to ask why Rusty, that sort of central character that he starts out kidnapping, you got to think, why on earth does that guy keep going back? So there's something really quite disturbing in that relationship between the two of these that I think is hidden from us somehow.
Yeah.
And then there are obviously lots of kind of, there's a bit of toilet humor in here, which is reasonably funny. But there's also something about the observer being observed, and I think that's quite, the way that relationship is developed between, the guy creating the film, what he's apparently doing with the character, and also what he's doing with us as the audience. I think that's an interesting interrelationship.
Good point. Yeah. But he's
then,
inevitably an unreliable narrator.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's, I've not really seen that done before, I don't think, in machinima. And he gets, he seems to sort of suggest he's getting more and more daring with his sadistic deeds. And when he starts sort of, doing all these paintings and sticking them all over the place, it's kind of like he's kind of taunting people to sort of, or the other players and the audience to sort of catch him out in what he's doing somehow, just to say no, you're not doing that right. It's almost like he's kind of daring us in some way, and certainly in what he's portraying, it's clear what he's doing is daring the other folks there to come and rescue Rusty. But of course, it's just a game and no one does. Or if they do, they're kind of captured as well. So in many ways, he's using these paintings like fly paper. And that's kind of an interesting concept as well, I think.
Sure is, yeah.
But the other side of that is presumably the fact that he's put all those things up around the sort of local community and he's capturing all these people. That is the bit that's enabled him to make a profit out of what he's doing. And he only kind of skims over that a little bit. So he ends up putting an art stall on his front yard and he's saying, I've made $1.5 million out of selling these and whatnot. But there's a lot missing, I think. Ultimately, I kind of concluded it's really sick. What he's done is really sick. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this in Sims. I think it's really well edited. And I kind of ended up asking, is this a study of Rusty or a study of the creator or both? And it's kind of pitched as a study of Rusty, where, the creator's kind of talking about his vulnerability, his stupidity, the isolation that he's put through and how fragile he is as a character. And maybe that's true. But I think what also may be true is that and somebody puts out a comment on the channel that I thought actually probably summed it up pretty well, which is along the lines of, well, it's a pretty good job that this guy's a YouTuber, because if he wasn't, it would probably be out there doing this in real life.
Oh my God.
And I suspect that may be closer to it. So yeah. Excuse me. That was what I thought about it anyway.
Really great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really insightful comments.
All right, so a couple of things that came to mind when I watched it is first the way that use the painting, that you can take a picture of something in the game to use as reference. I didn't know The Sims had that as a capability. So I learned something just about the game from that, because as a game feature, I've got a copy of The Sims 4, but I'd never really used it that much, so that was quite educational. And then I was thinking about it from the perspective of what the game is capable of doing, because obviously the game is not really designed for players to be psychopaths in it. Obviously you can engage in crime and stuff like that, but not to this level. So the way that this Rusty and the other Sims act, they're not programmed to act like they've been kidnapped, because that's not what the game was designed for, which adds to the humor of the fact that they don't try and escape.
Exactly, because they're just normal. They're acting normally.
Yeah. And and they don't try, and no one comes to the rescue or anything like that.
No police or anybody investigating these people's being missing.
The fact that, you know, they did put the paintings out all over the place, and there's one bit where he puts them up in a cafe and there's these two women sat at the table and he puts them up and then he makes this joke about how it kills the conversation, and the next shot the table's empty because they've left. Now obviously he made all that happen, but he's aware of what he's doing is extremely wrong, and he's just doing it anyway to see what could happen in the game world. And I thought it's a very sick, dark kind of humor. I definitely would not want to watch it as a live action film. I've got no interest in watching the Saw films or anything like that because it just doesn't appeal to me. But Ricky, you're right. When it's animated, somehow it makes it more watchable and funnier.
Indeed. Well, I think since the humor comes from the fact that you expect one thing and you get something else. And you're surprised and you react to that difference by laughing at it.
Yeah.
So you have a guy that's playing Sims 4 and he says, I'm going to go out and get some friends. He gets some friends and then he kidnaps the guy. But he says it in such a normal way as if somehow this is what you do in Sims 4. And that's what makes it funny.
Yeah.
And I think the creator of the film knows that source of humor and wanted to see how far he could go in the game with it.
Yeah. Because people watching this are going to be somewhat familiar with the game. I imagine a lot of the viewers who are watching are. And so they're going to know that's how the characters behave. Whereas if you watched it live action and you thought, why aren't they trying to escape? Why is no one trying to find out where they've all gone? And it just wouldn't work. So yeah, being familiar with the game and its limitations and the way it's, well, not really limitations, but the way it's designed, that's what sells it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's part of a tradition of gaming. You know, as I've gone into great depth in learning Elden Ring, I've discovered, I mean, I put in 1,000 hours on that game so far, and I've discovered all sorts of people making content for it. And what astounds me is how many different ways you can turn the game against itself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think in a way that impulse is what propels some machinima filmmakers to use games like Sims 4, because they see all of this bourgeois normalcy and they want to turn it upside down. They want to play with them in different ways. And the game, without the developers even knowing it, have created an environment in which that can occur.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, this guy, I looked on his channel, his whole channel is filled with videos where he's doing kidnaps of NPCs in games. His whole channel.
He's found a niche.
He found his niche. That's right.
Yeah. See, that's the thing that's interesting about YouTube and other ways of earning a living. I mean, the fact that you can earn a living on, like, for example, doing game builds for Elden Ring. There's people that are making, 6 figures doing that because they have 100,000 people watching it. But that has created this sort of interesting place that has made the difference between professional and amateur very, very slim.
Yeah.
Because is a professional is somebody who makes their living essentially doing what off of their creations. So why not? If this guy's making a living, he's a pro. And if he finds something that he does really well and has a strong response, he keeps doing it. I think that's smart business.
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah, there are worse jobs. That's for sure. There are worse jobs. One of the things that I loved about his approach, and this is actually true of The Sims in general, and it always has been, these animated characters are put onto the screen and they have facial expressions and nonverbal body language. And, we never really get to know what they are actually thinking or feeling. You get an idea. There'll be some little emotelet or, icon that'll show up and okay, you can tell that they're angry, or sometimes they're just raising their eyebrows about something and making some funny face. And it's kind of like if you've ever done this yourself or gone with someone who likes to go like to the airport to people watch, they call it, or to go to the mall and people watch. And sometimes from a distance where you can just see the interactions happening and you see expressions and nonverbal movements, but you can't hear what's being said. And it's only natural. Writers do this a lot, I find, who are of a kind of a little bit mischievous temperament, is they'll fill in the dialogue of what they think is going on. And it's very funny sometimes, and our imaginations a lot of times are just wired that way. Well, The Sims is built on an entire world of characters where you are compelled to do that because that information is missing. And so what he has done here is, instead of just trying to fill that gap in with what's natural, he's got this unnatural narrative.
Beautiful.
And he's interpreting those. So a lot of the shots are just, that Rusty turns and kind of raises his eyebrows in a weird way. And then he just basically chooses to interpret that in a humorous way related to his narrative. It's just wonderfully done. Like if you strip all that away, the game's not really giving him a whole lot to go on there. The game is not driving his narrative, but it's open enough to where he can put that humorous interpretation into place, and it just works so well. And so much of what's going on the screen is him essentially reacting to in a very controlled and planned way, but reacting to what the game's giving him with this vagueness of expression. It's just wonderfully done.
Contrast this movie with Snow Witch, made in The Sims as well.
Yes, good point.
It's the same engine, okay? My point that I'm trying to make is that really great machinima is not about the engine so much as it is about the imagination that artists have encountering the engine.
Yes.
And seeing what they can do with it, how they can turn it around and play it against itself. I think your film in Red Dead Redemption about that funeral, the guy going to the funeral, is another example of that. You wouldn't think, funerals would occur in Red Dead Redemption, but Red Dead Redemption is about action. It's about, gunfights and going here and interacting with this one there and going to this place. It's not about somebody having a deep feeling about going to a funeral, conflicting feelings inside of himself. We owe that to your imagination, Phil. By the same token, this guy's imagination, although it's a little on the end that has a high squirm factor, if you really start thinking about it, it's the same thing. He's using his imagination based on what the game gives him.
Yeah, the game is a palette. Yeah. I think that's the most interesting machinima to me is one where the game is just a palette.
Yeah.
It just happens to be the thing that can generate the imagery, but it's in service of someone else's vision or story or comedy sketch or poem or just looking artistic or whatever it is.
Well,
That's
look at the success.
More interesting to me than just a recording of someone actually playing the game, which has its value, has its place. I watch just regular Let's Play stuff that's not dramatized like this. I watch it very regularly to learn more about a game I'm interested in and stuff like that.
Yep.
And technically that's machinima too. But when I use the word, this is the kind of thing I think of where someone else is turning it into something else. It's transforming.
Well, I think all four of us share that opinion. Yeah. Look at Red versus Blue, one of the most successful machinima series ever made. You couldn't have done that without that game engine. You couldn't. because they didn't have to worry about lip sync because the guys had helmets. All they had to do was minor animation. But that game gave them the opportunity to do their specific type of black absurdist humor in it, which caught the public's eye, which tickled the fancy, so much so that they were able to take that into 7 or 8 seasons, become a major professional company, and all of that rot. But I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's the game is the palette. I think that's going to be our catchphrase from now on.
Sure. One more thing I'll mention too, when we were, Tracy, you were talking about the legendary difficulties of getting the Sims to behave. That's still the case today. I follow several people who make movies in The Sims 4 presently, and it's a regular quandary. Even with they've got all kinds of mods and tools to spawn and control things in a certain way, but there's always that little factor of the Sim is just wants to go. Sometimes just goes and does what it wants, and that was true when I made Male Restroom Etiquette. If you remember, I released that outtakes reel afterwards of where I had these guys in a restroom and just constantly forcing them to fight to get all the footage for this fight scene. And at one point, one just breaks down crying. I didn't trigger that at all. He just started weeping in the middle of a scene where he's supposed to just stand there. Another one where a guy was, basically I had him laying down on the ground to essentially play dead. And just all of a sudden in the middle of filming, the Sim just stands up and kind of looks around like, and so yeah, there's I'm sure there's many hours of potential outtakes out there of when people have tried to get these things to behave. Yeah. So anyway, well, I'm there's such great comments from all of you, and I'm glad that I hesitate to use the word enjoy on this because I think it's kind of a mixed reaction, but I knew that would be one that would spawn a lot of discussion. So thank you all very much.
Yep. Great. Phil, that was an excellent pick you've chosen this month, and you're right, it did spawn quite a lot of discussion, which I enjoyed being part of or listening to. So I hope our listeners enjoy watching this film as well, and if you'd like to send us any feedback about it or about us, please send us an email to talk@completely.machinima.com. You can see all the news and everything else on our website, which is also completely.machinima.com. We'll be back next week with another film review. So take care, happy holidays, and see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.